Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. You are watching and listening to Historian Radio's Echoes of the News. And I am Muhammad Hussain Qazi, and these are the previous week's headlines from the past. Before we begin, I would like to inform to our dear esteemed viewers and listeners that after this episode is aired, sooner or later we will be uploading the episode that was supposed to be uploaded on the previous weekend, which unfortunately could not have been uploaded due to some errors that were coming in the file. Unfortunately, while this channel is dedicated to preserving history, it must rely on modern technology, and so these issues arise. Nevertheless, we have resolved it, and the episode should be coming to you very soon. But now we must begin with the previous week's headlines from the past. On the 23rd of February 1945, the Americans raised the flag on Iwo Jima, one of the most significant battlefields in the Pacific Theater, and the iconic photograph being taken of the Americans raising the flag on Iwo Jima. It became one of the most iconic pictures of the Second World War and is still used to this day to boost morale in the United States. Moving forward, on the 24th of February in more recent history, in 2022, the Russian Federation launched an attack on the Ukraine, which was the largest and is the largest scale military operation or invasion ever to take place since the Second World War. The conflict has continued well into this day. It is a conflict that has been fueled by many complex and conflicting issues. For example, certain tensions left unresolved after the end of the First Cold War, and several historical conflicts and several historical and political issues which have unfolded as a result of the current high temperatures of political polarization in Europe. Nevertheless, it is a brutal conflict that has prolonged to this day. Moving forward, on the 25th of February 1986, Corazon Aquino was sworn in as the President of the Philippines after the People's Power Revolution ousted longtime dictator Ferdinand Marcos, and with the restoration of democratic governance, Corazon Aquino, the leader of the opposition in the Philippines, that is to say, the opposition to Ferdinand Marcos, took control of the levers of state power through democratic means. Thus, a historic day in the history of the modern Filipino political infrastructure. And on the 26th of February in 1815, one of the most significant dates in the history of the Napoleonic conflicts, on the 26th of February 1815, Napoleon escaped Elba. It was here that he left his exile and returned to France in an attempt to take charge of his country again, starting the Hundred Days campaign, which of course ended with his defeat at Waterloo, thus marking an end to Napoleon's rule of France. And so this would truly be a significant date in the course of human history. And following that, on the 27th of February 1933, the Reichstag fire took place. The Reichstag fire was a fire that effectively burnt down the Reichstag, which is to this day now known as the Bundestag, is the palace of the German government. That is not necessarily the residence of the head of state, but where business gets done, sort of the parliament of the German government. And it was burnt down by SA members, and they had blamed it on the members of the communist factions that were active and on the rise in Germany. It would be this very fire that the Nazis would use as an excuse to climb the road and the ranks of power. And so truly, the Reichstag fire would be a significant date in the history of German politics, as it would undoubtedly secure Hitler's position of power. Moving forward, on the 28th of February 1991, the Gulf War ceasefire was declared. It was on this date that coalition forces halted combat, or had chosen to halt combat, after the liberation of Kuwait. Iraq remained under sanctions and containment, and the threat, however, still loomed. And this later on set the stage for continued Middle Eastern tensions, which have continued well on to this day. Thus, the 28th of February 1991 was a significant date in the history of contemporary Middle Eastern politics. And lastly, on the 1st of March 1872, Yellowstone became the first national park of the United States. It was established by the United States Congress, and it launched the Global National Park movement, a movement that thankfully continues to this day in different corners of the world, protecting environments and natural habitats. And on that note, ladies and gentlemen, from revolution and invasion to escape and surrender, the week or the final week of February had seldom passed quietly in the annals of recorded human history. And so we must conclude today's broadcast on this note. We shall return to you next Monday with another recap of headlines from the past week, or the week that shall come to pass, from the course of human history. That was it for today. I am Hussain Qazi, and you are watching and listening to Historian Radio's Echoes of the News. Good night.